once, when great scarcity fell on the land, he could no longer procure daily bread. Now, when he thought over his by night in his bed and tossed about in his anxiety, he groaned and said to his wife, "What is to become of us? How are we to feed our poor children when we no longer have anything even for ourselves?" "I'll tell you what, husband," answered the woman. "Early tomorrow morning we will take the children out into the forest to where it is the thickest. There we will light a fire for them and give each of them one piece of bread more. When we will go to our work and leave them alone, they will not find their way home again, and we shall be rid of them." "No, wife," said the man, "I will not do that. How can I bear to leave my children alone in the forest, where wild animals would soon come and tear them to pieces?" "Oh, you fool," said she, "when we must all four die of hunger, you may as well plan the planks for our coffins." And she left him no peace until she consented. "But I feel very sorry for the poor children all the same," said the man. The two children had also not been able to sleep for hunger, and had heard that the woman had said to their father. Gretel wept bitter tears and said to Hansel, "Now all is over with us." "Be quiet, Gretel," said Hansel. "Do not distress yourself. I will soon find a way to help us." And when the old folk had fallen asleep, he got up, put on his little coat, opened the door below, and kept outside. The moon shone brightly, and the white pebbles, which lay in front of the house, glittered like real silver pennies. Hansel stooped and put as many of them in the little pocket of his coat as he could possibly get in. When he went back and said to Gretel, "Be comforted, dear little sister, and sleep in peace. God will not forsake us," and he lay down again in his bed. When day dawned, but before the sun had risen, the woman came and woke the two children, saying, "Get up, you sluggards, we're going to the forest to fetch wood." She gave each a little piece of bread and said, "There is something for your dinner, but do not eat it up before then, for you will get nothing else." Gretel took the bread under her apron, as Hansel had the stones in his pocket. Then they all set out together on the way to the forest. When they had walked a short time, Hansel stood still, peeped back, and did so again and again while he was throwing the white pebble stones one by one out of his pocket onto the road. When they had reached the middle of the forest, the father said, "Now, children, pile up some wood, and I will each ate a little piece of bread, and as they heard the strokes of the wood axe, they believed that their father was near. It was, however, not the axe. It was a branch which he had fastened to a withered tree, which the wind was throwing backward and forward. And as they had been sitting such a long time, their eyes shut with fatigue, and they fell fast asleep. When at last they awoke, it was already dark night. Gretel began to cry and said, "How are we to get out of the forest now?" But Hansel comforted her and said, "Just wait a little until the moon has risen, and when we shall soon find a way." And when the full moon had risen, Hansel took his little sister by the hand and followed the pebbles which shone like nearly coined silver pieces, and showed them the way. They walked the whole night long, and by break of day came once more to their father's house. They knocked at the door, and when the woman opened it and saw that it was Hansel and Gretel, she said, "You naughty children, why have you slept so long in the forest? We thought you were never coming back at all." The father, however, rejoiced, for it had got him to the heart to leave him behind alone. Not long afterward, there was another famine in all parts, and the children heard their mother saying at night to the father, "Everything is eaten again. We have one half loaf left, and after that there is an end. The children must go. We will take them further into the wood, so that they will not find their way out again. There is no other means of saving ourselves." The man's heart was heavy, and he thought it would be better for you to share the last mouthful with your children. The woman, however, would listen to nothing, and he had to say, but scolded and reproached him. "He who says A must say B likewise." And as he had yielded the first time, he had to do a second time also. The children were, however, still awake, and had heard the conversation. When the old folk were asleep, Hansel again got up to go out and pick up pebbles. But the woman had locked the door, and Hansel could not get out. Nevertheless, he comforted his little sister and said, "Do not cry, Gretel. Go to sleep quietly. The good God will help us." Early in the morning came the woman and took the children out of their beds. The bit of bread was given to them, but it was still smaller than the time before. On the way into the forest, Hansel grumbled his in his pocket, and often stood still and threw a morsel on the ground, and little by little threw all the crumbs on the path. The woman led the children still deeper into the forest, where they had never in their lives been before. When a great fire was again made, and the mother said, "Just sit there, you children, fetch you away. When it was noon, Gretel shared her piece of bread which Hansel, who had scattered his by the way. Then they fell asleep. The evening passed, but no one came to the poor children. They did not awake until it was dark night, and Hansel comforted his little sister and said, "Just wait, Gretel, until the moon rises, and when we shall see the crumbs of bread which I have strewn, we will show us our way home again." When the moon came, they set out, but they found no crumbs, for the many thousands of birds which fly about in the woods and fields had picked them up all. Hansel said to Gretel, "We shall soon find a way," but they did not find it. They walked the whole night and all the next day, from morning till evening, but they did not get out of the forest, and they were very hungry, for they had nothing to eat but 2 or 3 berries which grew on the ground. And as they were so weary and their legs would carry them no longer, they lay down beneath a tree and fell asleep. It was now 3 mornings since they had left their father's house. They began to walk again, but they always got deeper into the forest. If help did not come soon, they must die of hunger and weariness. When it was midday, they saw a beautiful snow-white bird sitting on a bough, which sang so delightfully that they stood still and listened to it. And when it had finished its song, it spread its wings and flew away before them. They followed it until they reached a little house, on the roof of which it alighted. Then they came quite up to a little house. They saw that it was built of bread and covered with cakes, but the windows were of clear sugar. "We will set to work on that," said Hansel, "and have a good meal. I will eat a bit of the roof, and you, Gretel, can eat some of the window. It will taste sweet." Hansel reached up and broke off a little of the roof to try how it tasted. Gretel leaned against the window and nibbled at the panes, when a soft voice cried from the room, "Nibble, nibble, now, who nibbles at my door?" But the children went on eating without disturbing themselves. Hansel, who thought the roof tasted very nice, tore down a great piece of it. Gretel pushed out the whole of one children were awake. She was up, and when she saw both of them sleeping and looking so pretty with their plump red cheeks, she muttered to herself, "What will be a dainty mouthful?" When she seized Hansel with her shriveled hand, carried him into a little stable, and shut him in with a grated door. He might scream as he liked. That was of no use. When she went to Gretel, shook her till she awoke, and cried, "Get up, lazy thing, fetch some water, and cook something good for your brother. He is in the stable outside, and is to be made fat. When he is fat, I will eat him." Gretel began to weep bitterly, but it was all in vain. She was forced to do what the wicked witch ordered her. And now the best food was cooked for poor Hansel, while Gretel do nothing but grab shells. Every morning the woman crept to a little stable and cried, "Hansel, stretch out your finger that I may feel if you will soon be fat." When 4 weeks had gone by, she was seized with impatience and will not wait any longer. "Oh, there, Gretel," she cried to the girl, "be active and bring some water. Let Hansel be fat or lean. Tomorrow I will kill him and cook him." Ah, how a poor little sister did lament when she had to fetch the water, and how her tears did flow down over her cheeks. "Dear God, do help us," she cried. "If the wild beasts in the forest had but devoured us, we should at any rate have died together." "Just keep your noise to yourself," said the old woman. "All that won't help you at all." Early in the morning Gretel had to go out and hang up the cauldron full of water and light the fire. "We will bake first," said the old woman. "I have already heated the oven and kneaded the dough. Gretel said, I too will take something home with me, and filled her pinafore full. But now we will go away, said Hansel, but we may get out of a witch's forest. When they had walked for 2 hours, they came to a great piece of water. We cannot get over, said Hansel. I see no foot plank and no bridge, and no boat crosses either, answered Gretel. But a white duck is swimming there. If I ask her, she will help us over. When she cried, little duck, those who see Hansel and Gretel are waiting for free. There's never a plank nor a bridge inside. Take us across on 5 backs so wide. The duck came to them, and Hansel seated himself on her back and told his sister to sit by him. No, replied Gretel, but will be too heavy for the little duck. She shall take us across one after the other. The good little duck did so, and then they were once safely across, and had walked for a short time. The forest seemed to be more and more familiar to them. At length they saw from afar their father's house. Then they began to run, rushed into the burrow, and threw themselves into their father's arms. The man had not known one happy hour since he had left the children in the forest. The woman, however, was dead. Gretel emptied her pinafore until pearls and precious stones ran about the room, and Hansel threw one handful after another out of his pocket to add to them. Then all trouble was